Hello, everyone. This is Eric Pennington, and welcome to the Spirit of EQ podcast. We're glad that you've tuned in. A few things we wanted to tell you at the beginning of the show, and that's this podcast was created to be a tool to help you, primarily to discover and grow your EQ. Science and our own lived experiences confirm that the better we are at managing our emotions, the better we're going to be at making decisions, which leads to a better life. And that's something we all want. We're glad that you've taken out the time today to listen and hope that something that you hear will lead to a breakthrough. Hey, one last thing. We'd really appreciate a review on whichever platform you use to listen. And if you want to, leave some comments about what you heard today, as well as follow and subscribe. That way you won't miss a single episode as we continue this journey. And with that, the show begins. Perry Maughmer, welcome to the show again.
I'm glad to be here, and thanks for asking.
Well, I always love the again part because you've been on before and you're one of our favorite guests. So, and as you know, one of my favorite people in my orbit too.
Ooh, okay.
Well, I'm sorry, Jeff. I had to say that. I mean, I can't miss an opportunity to make him feel.
He knocked me out of the top 10, didn't he?
Well, I don't know. I think you rank. But welcome to the show.
Yes. So before we get started, I got a question. I'm looking at his shirt, and I'm asking, is that Bigfoot or a self-portrait?
Both.
Both?
I've been mistaken for one, so I just go with it.
So are you going to tell the audience, because we're not videoing?
He's got a picture of Bigfoot wearing a toque.
Yeah. Actually, it is.
If you don't know what a toque is, listen to Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Right.
It's a stocking cap.
So wait, I got to ask, since we're talking about Sasquatch, that's the Indian name, right? Or is
It's one of them.
Or
yeah.
Bigfoot. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll stick with Bigfoot. Washington State, is that kind of like supposed to be the area where that was?
I think it's one of the hot spots.
Yeah.
Okay, spreading out into the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just Canadians sneaking down, but
Okay, right. We're in a
apologies
suit.
to our Canadian audience. That was just a joke.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Now that we're completely off the rails, we'll try to get back to it. So, I hear you got a new book out.
I do.
Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Okay. It's The Recurrence Effect. It came out, I think it was available in last month in March.
Okay. Amazon and all that stuff?
Yeah, all the normal platforms.
Okay.
I would to sum it up, it's really just I want people at the end of it, hopefully, to believe they have everything they need to do whatever it is they want to do, and they don't need anybody else's help.
Okay. I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's no framework, no system, no process, nothing additive.
Okay.
That's what I like. It's really based in the concept of choice, and for people to recognize they always have a choice, even when it's not the choice they would like.
Okay. It's kind of interesting. The small group I'm in on, we call it a book club. It's a support group. I don't know. We meet every Sunday night. We're doing a book, and I cannot think of her name, called Radical Acceptance, where that's some of the theme of the book, that it's teaching us that you have what it takes. You have to actually accept that, and you have to accept who you are and all that. And it sounds like there's a lot of that in this book.
Yeah, and it's it's kind of based on this kind of rhythm that I've lived my life with, which is explore, experiment, evaluate, and edit. And I think to your point of acceptance, right? To a point, I think we accept who we are, and then in context of what we want most, and then also accept the fact that we have choices to be different,
right?
If we'd like to. And my point is, there's no judgment on what people do choose. It's just it's accepting the accountability and responsibility for the choice. You always have the choice. It doesn't matter what you choose, just acknowledge you have the choice.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand that today.
Well, it's just easier to not, right? It's easier for it to be somebody else's fault or to not be able to do something. Jean-Paul Sartre would have said that's bad faith. Like when we say, well, what else was I going to do? Well, you could have done a multitude of things, right? And again, there's no judgment involved in what you do or don't do. It's just beginning with the piece that you always have that choice.
You always have that choice.
Yeah.
What do you think is behind that in the sense, because when I hear you say that, I think of people being afraid that, well, if I choose this and it doesn't work out, then fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a fear thing?
Well,
or
I think
it's probably a multitude of things. But.
Well, no, but I think one of the things is I think it's around the concept of needing to be right, and the false belief that there is a right answer in most of these things, and that you always have a chance to come back. You don't choose once. You choose again and again and again, right? So there's no finality in any of those choices most of the time, right? But we have this preoccupation with thinking that we always have to have the plan, and we always have to, in some way, be able to know what's going to happen in the future. So whatever we decide today, to have the false thought that it's going to be correct a week or a month or 2 years from now, that's why I always look at the verb evolve. We're always trying to evolve as a personality. Our personality isn't static. Like I know, I hope, I'm not the same person I was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, nor am I the same person I'm going to be in 5, 10 years from now. But to embrace that opportunity to always be evolving and never be static. So therefore, I have a myriad of choices open to me.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Go
ahead.
I was just, so what's got you down the path to write this book? What inspired you to want to do this?
I wrote it for myself. Like, I wrote it as a kind of inside of it, right? So I wrote it to make sense of it, because it's when I look at what I've done, that's where the book spun out of. And it's an interesting process, as Eric probably can attest to write a book, because this is not the book I started out writing.
Okay.
And so I had to, when you start putting down on paper what you believe you think, it gets interesting, right? Because then you start reading it going, wait a minute, this is not what I intended.
Yeah, I've done that with not a book, but journaling.
Yeah.
You go, what am I really thinking?
Right. Well, I tell all the people I work with, I'm like, it doesn't count if it's not written down. Like, I mean this nicely. I don't care what you think. I care what you've taken the time to write down, because that clarifies your thinking.
And it gives you a different perspective of what it is. When you see it, a written word, it becomes more concrete, and it's actually a thing now.
Yeah, and it's also something you can share, because I can't, if I'm talking to somebody about what I think, I'm dependent upon their perception of what I'm talking about, because I'm not giving them. But if I write it down, now they have something we can go back to. We have something we can go back to, because we have a shared version of reality.
Okay. So looking at this book, 5 years from now, what would success for that book look like?
I don't have any measurement, because I didn't care if any of it sold. I mean, I wrote the book for me, and I told the folks that there was only one factor involved in how I wrote the book. And I told the folks I was working with when I wrote the book, I said, because they were talking about how I should structure the book is intentionally dense, right? It's written, it's my thought process. So I was writing exactly what I was thinking and why I was thinking and how I was thinking it and what references I used to think it. And so we go kind of deep into existentialism and phenomenology, and there's a lot of references to things like that. And that's because it was important to me to put it in there. And they were saying, well, you really want to, you're trying to attract people to read. You want to lighten this up, lighten that up. And I said, no, first of all. And they said, well, you also have to offer solutions. I said, well, there's another hard no. And because I wanted people to feel more tension when they got done reading the book than when they started. Okay. I was not there to relieve their tension or to offer them a solution, because that's dependent upon that human. Like, I can't do that. That to me, there's a lot of hubris involved in that, right? I can't tell you what's going to work for you. And the second part of this is I told the folks that I was working with, I said, I don't care if anybody reads this book who doesn't know me. What's important is if somebody does know me and they read this book, it sounds like me. Like, those people have to read that book and go, yeah, that's what Perry would have said. I don't want them to read a book and go, this doesn't sound like Perry. And so I kind of purposely narrowed that audience down, because that was the more important thing to me, that it sounded authentic to people that knew me.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
I'm. This episode is not recorded by video, and if it were, you'd see me smiling. I've known Perry for close to 15 years now, right? Yeah. And so we've interacted beyond this scope. And I can remember some of our conversations over coffee and walking to my car, having your voice in my head with something you said. And it wasn't ever a conclusive, this is the way, this is how. It was never that. And I think firmly I would have been a major disadvantage if you would have given me or tried to give me an answer for where I was at and what I was dealing with and on and on and on. Because to your point about this stuff that's already inside of us, it was about, for me personally, discovering it, wrestling with it, trying, experiment, fail, do again, all of what you're talking about. And Perry, I gotta ask, and you can be gentle for these who fall into this category. There's so many out there who are trying to push an idea that this is how, this is what, this is when. What are you? I'm going to be simplistic. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think it's happening for the main reason. People, clarity is comfort, and certainty is comfort. And so what we all do is we want somebody from the outside to provide us with an answer. So I have system this, I have steps 1, 2, 3, get up before 5 o'clock in the morning, do these 4 things, you'll be successful. However you want to say it, right? There's tons of them out there. And by the way, all of those people who are offering those, it probably worked for them. And that's absolutely awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's nothing wrong with going out and looking for those things and finding out all the different things that are out there. But at the end of it, you still have to do something. And to me, reading about how somebody else became successful and then thinking you're going to duplicate that, you are not that human, right? You don't have that environment. You don't live in that city. You don't have that experience. There's far more you don't have. The only thing you share is the idea that you want to be successful and theoretically their system. So to me, that's like if I go out and get a custom-made suit, all right? So Eric and I are different sizes. Like I'm taller than Eric, I'm wider than Eric. And so if I go out and get a custom-made suit, it fits me perfectly. And Eric says, hey, can I wear your suit? Yeah, he could wear my suit. Now, it'll accomplish in general what it's supposed to accomplish. He'll have a suit on, but it's not going to fit him, right? It's not going to look great, right? And so to me, that's what we do. And we do it because we believe there's an answer outside of us that'll fix us. 2 flaws. We don't need fixed. And second, there's no answer outside of us. We can go gather information, we can explore, but then we have to internalize it and make it ours because we have to live with it. And I think if we looked inside more than outside, we'd all be moving further along.
You know, in a way, what he's talking about is one of the things that we do when we do coaching. You know, we never are supposed to give an answer. You're not giving the answer to anyone. You're making them think along the lines of looking for their answer. And I think that's very important.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to get into leadership, current state of leadership later, but I think one of the challenges with leaders today is this myth around decisiveness. Because when we give an answer, we close off meaning. Like we collapse meaning onto that answer. So now everybody else in that room doesn't think anymore because we now have the answer. And so we shut off, and this is going back to the people that write books and all that. Everybody out there that's selling a system or a process or a framework or whatever you want to call it, we're universalizing experience. And to think there's 3 of us sitting at this table, to think that I could tell either of you how to fix anything that's going on in your life based on my own personal experience, I'm universalizing what worked for me, saying it's going to work for you without any context around who you are, what your experience is, what you're willing to do. Lisa, my wife, used to come home all the time when she was working, and she would talk about the people that were working around her. And hey, I got this challenge. She goes, what would you do? And I go, well, first of all, I'll tell you what I would do. And then second of all, don't ever do this. I said, because you doing this would not work. It may work for me. It may not. It definitely isn't going to work for you. You have to figure out what you're going to do. because you are a different human and it will come out of your mouth differently. Your willingness to back it up is different. Your willingness to live with the consequences are different. None of that is universal.
Their perception of her is different.
Absolutely. If I walk into a room and she walks in the room, we're getting different things, right? And but that's why the universalization doesn't work. And that's why the whole point of this is I want people to be released from guilt and shame and anxiety and frustration, because people do this and they go out and try these systems and they don't work. And then the person asks the question, what's wrong with me? And the answer is nothing.
Yeah, boy, you really hit that one. That is really, really powerful.
On the way here, you've heard me talk about this group from Mexico called The Warning. It's three sisters. If you like good hard rock music, they're fantastic.
Okay.
But I was listening to one of their songs. It was called Fade Away, and she's talking about everything about this, how she has to do her own decisions. She has to not worry what everybody else is thinking. It's a really powerful song for a girl that was like 21 when she wrote it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's important.
I think it was fascinating too, Perry, when we were in a setting outside of here a few weeks ago, and I asked you about how you felt about the book with it being released and all, and you said, well, I wrote it for me. So, and I remember I said to you, man, you're so on mark there, because that first book I wrote it for everybody else. And it wasn't as successful as I had anticipated, because there was a multitude of reasons, but one of them I think I was trying to give an answer to a problem. And the reality is that it was the answer I discovered. And my experience, as you just alluded to, is different. I think the more we can do, and boy, sometimes it feels like an uphill slog, right? To help people to understand how you just described that the gold is inside. It's not outside. And I know for some out there in the audience, potentially you might be like, well, I'm not sure I want to look at, because I think I got a lot of fool's gold inside of me. Do you, in your experiences of people who maybe have those insecurities and those fears of looking inside, what has been your approach with people like that?
No. I mean, I guess I don't have an approach, right? It's a readiness issue.
Yeah.
And
go there.
It's just everybody gets ready at a different time. Like, I've worked with a lot of people over the years, and some of them I'll work with for a couple of years before they decide it's time.
Yeah.
And
that's
once they decide it's time, get out of the way.
Yeah.
It's just about figuring it, because it's to your point, it's about how willing I am to look in the mirror. Because and again, none of this is external. Like, the whole shift is realizing not only am I the solution to all my problems, I am the cause of all of my problems. And so that's the two parts of that people don't want to. They don't want to do either. We want to ship off all of the responsibility for all of the things that all of our ailments to everybody else, to society and our boss and our spouse, whatever, right? It's any litany of reasons why we're not successful. So that's step one. Step two is not only once I do figure out, okay, I'm the only. There's a guy. He said there was a speaker, and he said, I want to let you in on a secret. I have been involved in every bad decision I have ever made. And I think that just that, right? It's just accepting that, all of these things that happened to me, what was the only constant? Me.
Yeah. That just reminds me, I was watching an interview with a singer of a 80s soul group. And the interview, he had been married I think he had been married 4 times. I think it was 4. And the interviewer is asking him, so you've been married 4 times, and wow. And he wasn't setting him up, but he was like, okay, so your first marriage, and then, okay, about the second. And then by the time they were talking about the 4th, he kind of had this look on his face. It was like, well, I guess the only thing that is in common was me. And it was like he was having an awakening in that moment that to your point, man. Yeah. Wow. How powerful. So Perry, from the book writing experience, meaning putting it together, doing the writing. I don't know if you found the editing process to be the most excruciating. That for me, and I mean excruciating in a good way, because the editor I had, it really got me to think about, is this really what you wanted to say, type thing. Did that process give you energy, or did you find it draining? Or
it was horrendous, like the whole thing for me, because I don't do well revisiting things I wrote yesterday, let alone revisiting something I wrote 6 months ago. It took a little over a year, right? So it was very hard for me to do any editing because I wanted to rewrite, like, because the stuff didn't land with me like it did when I wrote it a year ago. So it was hard for me to, the hardest part was the final edit. When they had all gone through their editing, they gave me the final manuscript to read one more time. I had to sit down and read it.
Yep.
That was one of the more painful things. It was not quite as painful as I did the audiobook. I actually did the audiobook myself. That was harder than writing the book.
Interesting.
That was a mess.
Wow. So assuming that if you have a second book in you, would you say, hey, yeah, I'll do it the same way, or would you change anything?
I don't know that I'd ever write another book, because the book on its face would be devalued if I wrote another book.
Oh, interesting.
Because the whole point of writing the book was that it's kind of a one and done.
Okay.
There's no second part. And I think that it's hard, because it's the whole point of it's the recurrence effect. So you return to things over time. So the point I was trying to make in the book is you don't need new stuff. So I would actually be it would actually be contrary to what I said in the first book to write a second book.
Yeah.
About that material. Like I could write. There's the thought in my head about writing a book that has nothing to do with the first book.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. And that goes back to, and you've heard me say it probably more than you care to remember, about Miles's statement of why he stopped playing in the mid 70s to the around 1980, and he just told the interviewer, I didn't have anything to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I always admired that, because and I had it happen with me. Okay, you write one, and if you write a second one, and then it's always this constant, so you're going to write another book? So you're going to write another book? And my span of writing was like, the first one was 2008, the second one was 2018, and here we are. And I always say, I don't know. I'm not going to write anything until I have something to say.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraged by that. Let's pivot to leadership. I always like your thoughts around this. And this takes me back in time, and I might have mentioned this on a previous show. I remember seeing you give a talk, and it may not have been exactly right at the beginning of the talk, but it's somewhere early on in the talk. You said something like, if you're thinking about wanting to get into leadership, don't. And then you explain, because this is not some glorious, you get crowned or whatever. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, because that was a while ago. But I've always liked your perspectives on it, because in many ways, as you know, as our audience knows, leadership development, everybody, it's like, oh, I've got a leadership development program. Oh, I can help you become a better leader, on and on and on. So if we clear out that fog, where would you say we're at? And I'm speaking in the United States, and maybe speaking more in business at this point. Yeah. Where are we at with leadership? Are we moving the needle? Are we improving? Or would you say it's static, or are we falling backward?
I don't know how we're doing this. I can tell you there's a pronounced increase in interest. So let me say, I think organizations are now more understanding of the fact that it's important to have, and by the way, it's just a pet peeve, but I don't think lead should ever be a noun. It should only be a verb. That's one of our issues, right? Because it's an activity. It's not who you are. Yeah. You're not a leader, right? Because and there's a couple reasons for that. One is because it's a terminal state as a label. Like, once you're a leader, what do? Like, you're there, right? But if I'm leading, I can always get better in activity. So I believe that we should always use it as a verb and not as a noun. And I believe once we get to the point where we stop talking about it as much, we'll be better at it. Because it's a how we do something. It's not a what we do, right? Because as far as I know, nobody ever gets the job in any business leader.
It doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in the how.
No, it's the what. It's the results. It becomes maniacally focused on, are you achieving your KPIs, which I hate, right? I have no interest in talking about business results. I don't care about anybody's business. I tell them that when I'm working with them. That's their job, not mine. Like I can't tell them how to run their business. I work with humans, right? I work with humans who want to do deep interior work about how they show up differently so that the people around them, it's all about creating a better world for those they care deeply about, whether it be at home, in their community, at their church, at their work, whatever that is. And the first thing is they got to care about people. Because if I care about people, I'm going to show up, right? I don't care about what they produce for me. They're not a means to an end. They're an end in themselves. And so that's how I approach leadership. And that's how I work with companies. That's why I don't work with many. Because I don't care about your KPIs. I don't care about your profit. I don't care about your revenue. I don't care about any of that stuff. That's your job. And by and large, the challenge is most of that stuff's a result anyway. It comes as a result of something. It isn't the result. Like it's not what you pursue. It's something you get by pursuing something else. And the really successful organizations understand that. They speak very little. If you listen to John Wooden from back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, I mean, they never, great coaches, right now, you talk about any great coach, you'll never hear them talk about wins and losses. They talk about their system. They talk about their process. They talk about what do we do today? Because if we do all of those things, the score takes care of itself.
That's interesting, Perry, because and his name is eluding me right now, but he was very successful, at least in this particular season. And I remember it was the typical, so tell me, how do you feel about, and he went right to, well, I just need to make sure, I'm trying to make sure that these young men grow in to be the kind of men that are great fathers, husbands, and it was, you could tell the audience was like, but what about you? You just had you just won, you just on and on and on. And it just triggered me what you were saying there about how it seems like we've flipped it, right? We've said the KPIs, where are those at? That's the secret sauce. If we get our KPIs right, then we will. When I got to thinking, Perry, if we ask the average company, do your leaders of people, right, those people who are in management, whatever you want to use, do they care about people? Do they love people? And do you know? It's one thing, we can all give a pat answer, right? Oh, yeah, my people, that we're for our people type thing. But really, do you? And if you found out that they didn't, what would you do? I think that would be a tremendous test, right?
Well, I asked a company the other day, they had a group of folks that were, leading in the field. And I said, okay, would you all agree? And there were 10 of the leaders in the room, the senior leadership. I said, would you agree that you're in your company, that person's job out there, give it whatever title you want, do they know that 50% of their job is developing the people that work for them so that they can replace them so they can move on, so you can scale your business? Do they understand that 50% of their job is growing people? And they looked at me and just shook their head no. And they said, on top of that, I don't think the people that are in those roles have any interest in doing that.
Oh, my gosh.
Because what we do is we promote on the basis of technical expertise.
Yeah.
So somebody who's really good at their job gets promoted to manage people that do that job, right?
Yep.
And so we're propagating the myth.
And Perry, I'm interrupting you, but for a visual, that's the all-star salesperson gets promoted to be the sales manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look in a world everybody can give me one example of a great athlete that transitioned to a great coach. A great athlete, like a transcendent athlete who successfully coached.
Yeah, there are not many of those.
I'm thinking of some that didn't.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's a long list of.
Yeah, I know.
And most of the ones who did transition to a great coach were serviceable athletes.
And it's interesting. I heard this. This was during a game. The coach for the Detroit Lions Boy, I wish I could. Do we have the Google around here anywhere?
Dan
Brett?
Campbell?
Dan
The current
Campbell.
one? The
yes,
current? Yeah,
yes,
Dan Campbell.
Thank you. There. You're right. Dan Campbell. And boy, now I'll get into my history. They were in the NFL, the NFC Championship game against San Francisco, and they had just basically had gone up and down the field in the first half. In the second half, it flipped, and it was just San Francisco just kept eking away. And one of the commentators said he's coaching like a player when he should be doing it like a coach.
Yeah.
And he says his propensity to think of it in terms of how a player would do it is getting in the way of him being an effective coach. It's just so interesting. So I'm curious, and no state secrets needed. Where did they land on, well, what do we got to do next? Or is it just we don't know what to do next?
No, everybody knows what to do.
Sorry.
It became evident to them. That was the light bulb moment, right?
Okay,
That was when
got
they
it. Yeah.
like kind of looked at each other and went, because every system, you get exactly what the system's designed to give you. So if you're not getting the output you want, you have to look at the system. It's not the system's fault. It's that you designed it to give you the output you're getting, and now you don't want that output.
A la the best salesperson should be the best sales
Right.
manager.
So, and this is not, and by the way, the other thing that typically precludes organizations from successfully addressing this is they want it now.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, well, this is wrong. We're going to fix it this year. No, you're not. No, you're not. And you can't just destroy your business model in an effort to do this. Like, this is a multi-year project. You're not going to get rid of those people that are doing that job right now. You can't. It's just silly. It's like we have to figure out a plan where we systematically go through and we have these conversations to see, by the way, we don't even know if they're interested in developing people. Let's have that. Don't assume. Why guess when you can ask? And then the second part of this is I run into many of these where it's like the person's like, yeah, I want to, but I don't have any tools. Like, I don't know how to do that. I'm willing. Right. So now it becomes another issue. It's like, okay, we have to give this person the tools. And then, how long does that take? We're not fixing this in 12 to 18 months. And by the way, we're not fixing anything. We're simply putting people in different roles where they can be, you can jointly build a sustainable and scalable business. Right. And that takes years. And that's the race you're never going to be done with it. Like, this is not an initiative you check off.
That's kind of the ideal. I remember what Simon Sinek was saying to an audience, and he was saying it somewhat rhetorically, I think. But, if you make a statement that I want to be healthy, congratulations. You're going to need to do these things for the rest of your life.
Well, but that's it, right? It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
You're living a different lifestyle, and you don't do that overnight. And by the way, to your point, this is not a set it and forget it, right? This is a new way of existing.
Yeah.
That now permeates everything that you're doing. So you're fundamentally shifting the organization to head a different direction, one that is more sustainable and scalable for you long term. But that's a journey that doesn't end, right? So it's never done.
Do you find that they have a fear of what they may have to do in order to make that happen? And I'm speaking of, hey, Jeff and Eric are not the right people. Because they don't fit into that vision, meaning whether it's performance, attitude, or whatever. Do they confide in you about that fear?
Well, I think it's real, and yes, it is. But I always push back and go, well, that's not their fault. You never told them, so we can't just discard them because now they don't fit your model that you suddenly decided you want.
Great angle with that.
I mean, it's not their. Nobody here did anything wrong, like including the people at the table. It's like that's the whole point. The whole point of this is this: nobody's wrong, nobody's right, nobody's good, nobody's bad. Right? You've simply recognized that one of your challenges is X. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we have to craft some answer that benefits everybody in the organization moving forward. There's no absolute here.
I like where you were going to about the amount of time that it takes, because as we've talked, Jeff, many times on the podcast, the building of neural pathways and all those core beliefs that
Well, I think companies have neural pathways.
Yeah. And those are hard to shift. And I had this group I was talking to in the past week, and we were talking about listening, about the importance of it, and that it's an important art to learn, right? And I was using this example with my wife, right? And I used to be very much wired to always have either a rebuttal or a fix or some answer, right? That kind of thing. And this one was really hard because my wife is a big Mel Robbins fan. Okay. I mean, the audio books, the podcast, everything. And then my wife will come to me and say, "Oh, she's got this thing where if you do this and right, and you count down to 5, and then you boom, boom." And I found myself feeling that little bit of grind in me, going, I think I've had some pretty strong ideas that I've thrown your way. I've never recalled you. I'm thinking this, right? Now, that's my ego. I'm being transparent. My ego is like, hey, what about me type thing, right? And then the new neural pathway of listen. So I said to her, so tell me more. What was the most powerful in that formula or that process she described? And she did. She told me on and on and on. And someone could say, but Eric, she didn't validate you. Did you tell her about what you've done and how That's not the point. The point was for me to live out this neural pathway that says, I don't need validation from anyone. I, in this moment, need to listen and let you speak about what. And yeah, I mean, I would love it if my wife, every day I came home, she would say, man, I listened to that podcast you and Jeff did. Eric, I went back and grabbed your book from 2008 and I read another chapter. Come on. Right? And I think if maybe, to your point, if employers in this case they understand that there's this window of time where people have to be given room to make that shift. That's where I'm going with it. So, yeah. I wanted to ask you, Perry, about the leader who maybe is in that process of change, right? And I get it in our age. We want the answer now. Put it in your AI chatbot, get the answer, blah, 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 right? But let's assume that they're willing to listen to a different approach. What are some small steps in the turnaround, right? So I was going that way. Maybe I was heading east. Now I know I'm choosing that the best path for me is west. What are some small steps or things they can do to help improve their leadership? If you were to think about that in relation to what we've been talking about.
I would say probably the one that gets you the quickest and most ROI is to shift from. So in the book, there's something called the judgment curiosity continuum, right? Mm-hmm. And so when do you shift out of judgment and be curious? Because curiosity opens people up. So as somebody responsible for achieving things, like as a team, if you have a team of people or you're trying to get a job, whatever that is, right? So we spend our default point is judgment, right? And our brain's wired this way. It's a threat detection device. So it's looking for negative. It's looking for threats.
Yeah.
And so judgment, I mean, we're descendants of the most neurotic people ever. Like we're descendants of the ones who survived. So they're the most neurotic there were because everything scared them and they protected themselves. So we have to live with that.
Yep.
But when we're in judgment benefits us. I just use the term 80% of the day. I tell people 80% of your job's judgment, good, bad, right, wrong, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with it. But there's that other 20% where you're leading, where you have to disengage judging and ramp up curiosity. And curiosity requires you to do something most leaders don't want to do. Genuine curiosity requires that you utter the words, I don't know. So now I have a direct attack on my ego. Because as a leader, I'm
Again,
all
the
knowing.
noun.
Yeah, but I'm all knowing. Like my job as a leader is to know everything.
Because I'm the leader.
Right. That's what people do. I'm the answer. That's what my job is as a leader. That's the problem. The problem is that's not your job. But that's the job we've given everybody, which is you're all knowing. And so nobody wants to utter the phrase, I don't know, which then they can't be curious. Because if I'm curious, I don't know. So we have a conundrum, right? We have to be vulnerable and be able to go, I have absolutely no idea. What do you think we should do? Because now we're actually getting done what we wanted to get done, which is build self-efficacy in everybody else. Like we're bringing them up. We're reestablishing their belief in their own capacity, which makes us stronger. I'm not creating dependency, which is what most leaders do nowadays unknowingly. And then they get really frustrated that nobody seems to be able to make any decisions.
Right. And would that be played out potentially in that the expectation is you're going to come to me for the answer. You're going to come to me for the solution. You're going to come to me for the plan versus me saying, what do you think the plan should be? What would the plan look like if you did this? All of those kind of things.
Yeah, it is because, again, we go back to who do we promote? Technical experts. Technical experts have all the answers. They got promoted for that. So why wouldn't they be reinforced by the fact that the reason I'm sitting in this chair, the reason I have this job is because I know?
Would you allow me, Jeff, Perry, to take a left turn here?
I don't care.
Thank you.
I'm used to it.
I just caught that little jab. Mysteries. Now I know how you really feel. Oh, my gosh. I know you did it in love, so I'll take it as that.
We'll leave it at that.
Leave it at that.
Okay.
So AI,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is pretty obvious, it's eating away at the technical, eating away at the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So that leader, or who is in that role, who is having less and less as being the source of the knowledge, what are they left with? If the company or the organization needs less and less of your technical knowledge,
they're left with exactly what you're getting at. Very little value.
yeah.
And that's because, again, in this shift, and what we're running up against is just like I heard somebody say at the beginning of COVID. They said, look, what COVID created was 12 months of change, or 10 years of change in 12 months because of the scenario, right? Because we needed to adapt. We needed to go to Zoom. We needed to go all this remote, blah, 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 blah. They said it was coming all along. It's just this event required a massive shift, right? That's what we're coming up against again. Only it's going to be, 25 years of change in 6 months. And you're going to have people who are no longer valuable, as they would term it, right? The role that they play. I mean, I had somebody come into a meeting the other day and said, hey, one of my IT guys went home all weekend and did some vibe coding with AI, and we don't need our bookkeeper anymore. Today, we could just let that person go, and I've got a program that'll do all of that for us.
So that begs the question, not that you will have an answer, but I'm curious about, so if you feel that you are in that vulnerable spot, and I realize it also could be an opportunity spot. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative, but what should they be doing, you think, in light of that? Is it, and again, just looking for your opinion about, is it, hey, you've got to bone up on being more of a humanistic leader, or you need to provide or create value in other places? Or what are some of your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's going to be around, I think what we're going to end up, the people we're going to end up keeping in organizations are the people that love to learn. Because who knows what they're going to need to learn.
Yes, because of all this disruption, it's not settled.
Even what they're doing this month or this quarter or this year won't be the same thing they're doing next year. And so it's the people who have a positive response to uncertainty, right, and are willing to put themselves in positions to learn quickly. So that to me is the underlying benefit of anything anybody's going to do. I don't your individual skill set won't by and large not matter. Like the technical expertise you have in anything, right? It's going to be about how adaptable are you, how quickly can you learn, and how flexible can you be in what you do.
Which in many ways, I think, when we think about the podcast and the content that we create here, plus the work of Spirit of EQ, what we're trying to do is to help them in that interior work. And I'm going to take this right almost full circle back to what you're saying. The inside is where it happens. Mm-hmm. Because what you just talked about is someone who is looking inside saying, hey, maybe I need to shift. I need to learn. I need to all of those things. And not be so dependent or not so weighted on my technical skill, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah, not be as comfortable with and to be more comfortable with a lack of clarity and more ambiguity in the world,
right?
Because the more I cling to clarity, in my opinion, the way I see things is the less valuable you're going to end up being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the more you know. Because knowing is the opposite of learning.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the more you know, the less you learn.
I've mentioned this before, but I went to a small high school, 100 kids in my class. And I just guess I got lucky. All of the teachers in high school had the attitude of not knowing, but learning how to know.
Yeah.
Every one of them. And that served me so well.
Yeah. It's not about how much you know. It's how quickly can you know.
Yeah.
And how much do you need to know?
Isn't that maybe the part of where we hunger just for answers and not for the process to get to answers? Because
yeah, and I think we also unwittingly, words matter, right?
Yep.
Words create worlds. Do we want answers or do we want meaning?
Mm-hmm.
And those are not the same thing.
No.
Because answers are external, meaning's internal.
I have been of the belief, I'm still in that camp. I mean, obviously, who knows how it's going to be settled, but this idea that we've been riding on that train of technical skills getting us to where we want to go, quote, which typically didn't associate with meaning. It was typically, if I do these things, I will get promoted.
Right.
If I know this, I will get this certification, on and on. And I think that's going to be a real interesting challenge for a number of people, to where they're going to have to shift the paradigm to you can't rely on the technical anymore because it's being eaten away. And to your point earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, do you think that's going to happen inside of the employer or outside or both, as far as the not solutions, but the opportunities to develop?
I believe it's up to the individual. I don't think it has anything to do with the company.
Mm-hmm.
I think companies can provide an environment for people to do that, but whether they're going to do it or not is on them. And I tell companies this because I think sometimes companies go too far and try to take too much accountability and responsibility for people developing. And you can't do that. I mean, it just frustrates everybody. Companies need to provide an opportunity and an environment where it's possible, but then the person has to do the work. And I think that's the difference.
Oh my gosh. And Perry, I'm thinking of an individual. He was in a group cohort, and I remember the first time around in interacting with him with the program, it was very clear to me, like, okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, we can do this. Yeah, okay. Didn't take me long to go. He's either A, not trusting of what we're about to embark on, or B, he's like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to do this, right?
Right.
And then it was the post, and he was still that same, yeah, I guess it was all right.
He checked the box off.
Yeah. Now, maybe in his mind, and I didn't ask him this, but maybe in his mind, it was like, I didn't want to do this in the first place. I don't think this is important. I don't see why we were doing it. I think it was a waste of time. But then I go, well, you do realize that time is currency, and how you spend it matters. And I'm saying that to affirm what you're saying about it's the individual. Being able to lay it off to your employer and say, this is a waste of time. I don't know why they did it. They didn't, it didn't help me. Wait a minute. But you spent your currency on it. I mean, if you were really that powerful and, you were really that assured, why didn't you tell your employer, I'm opting out here. I'm going to spend my currency in some other way or some other area.
Maybe that was an option.
Yeah, maybe it was
or maybe there was a political fallout if they did.
Yeah. And my hope is, and this is my optimism coming out, my hope is that, to your point, that employers understand that you can create environments, conditions, right, climates, but it's going to be on that person to do the work. And
by the way, too, any of those programs, like the way I work with companies, I set it up on the front end. There has to be a process through which people opt in.
Mm-hmm.
Like there has to be an announcement. We're going to do this. We're going to do this program. Anybody interested? And there's no repercussions if you're not. See, again, this goes back to judgment, right?
Yep.
This can you cannot have an adverse impact on the person's career because they didn't decide to do it. Because then you're going to get the thing like you had, where the person did it from an optics standpoint. Now, you can be honest with them and say, if you're not going to develop these skills, this is the career path you're choosing for yourself. So you can lay it out so they can make a choice. But I'm going to go back to choice. Like everybody has that choice. We can't make it for them. And we have to make them own the choice that they make. You just have to make it clear what the consequences are. Because everybody lives with their choices.
Yes, they do. Oh, my gosh. Always like to give you an opportunity, Perry. What's something you're working on lately? I mean, I know the book is the newest. Maybe it's not the newest. It's one of the new things you've been working on. Anything else that's got you excited?
Just the work. The book was really the beginning of the work, not the end of it. So now it's what do I do with the content in the book to make it live on? And so that's what I'm really focused on, is returning to that content, because there's so much richness in that I don't want to get involved in novelty. So I am restarting my podcast, and I'm starting to write on Substack. So I'll have 3 ways that people can get content, and they're going to be they aren't all the same thing. Like I'm got very specific reasons for doing each of those. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens.
Will the podcast, for example, be building on what was in the book, or will it have a different?
The podcast for me is going to be 15 to 20 minute episodes that are just what I'm thinking about today. It's really going to be more unfiltered and not as well thought out. Mm-hmm. And then Substack will be on a different set of topics that are kind of, the name of it's from inside the return. So the one thing on all of the stuff that I share is it's simply my lived experience. Mm-hmm. So these are going to be things that I'm currently going through, but there's going to be no conclusion.
Absolutely.
Like my goal is not to offer a conclusion or a lesson,
Yep.
right? It's just, this is what I'm going through. This is where I'm at with this thing. I don't know if it resonates with you, great. Maybe you see yourself in it. Maybe you can take something from it. I don't know. And that's really hard to do after having done a career of providing answers. It's a different way to end things, where you don't, and it's actually very freeing, because you don't have to have an answer. You just have to share your experience.
Yeah, this is not our typical direction in the podcast, but I'm curious. How does the marketing side of this equation land for you? I know for me, and I get heat from multiple areas, because sometimes I kind of go, I don't want to do that. I don't see. I mean, it feels like I'm manipulating in order to move something for me, whereas I'm more of, and I know it's part of my personality and my wiring. I'm more improvisational, and I'm more in the moment, and I do care about people, and I don't want to. That's not my approach. And I'm not saying for our audience, if you're in marketing, that every marketer is the same. It's not a broad brush stroke. How do you feel about the process of promotion and marketing? For example, in the book,
I didn't do any.
I knew that's a Perry Maughmer answer.
So I don't, and with the podcast and with the Substack, there'll be no cadence.
No plugging.
There'll be no cadence.
Yeah.
Like I will write or record when I have something to say.
Yeah.
And there might be a flurry of 4 in a row and then nothing for 3 months. So there is no marketing involved in it because they're signals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the people that want to pick up on that signal, the very way I deliver them will align with the people who need to hear them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no every Tuesday I'm going to publish anything and this and have a snippet. I went through all that, and it is not what I believe. And so the only way I'll do this is in alignment with what I believe, which is and again, I'm to your, but marketing's awesome. Like I don't have any issue with it. I don't want to do something because I have to do it, because what ended up happening for me was, I had to have content. I had to have something, I had to have 4 episodes a month. Every Tuesday I had to have a podcast. So then it's like, well, am I really interested in this, or am I coming up with something am I manufacturing something to talk about? So I just released myself from that responsibility, and I just going to talk and write when I feel like it. And if it does anything, great. But the whole point of that, I'm not doing it for anybody else.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing it because Maya Angelou said, a bird doesn't sing because it has answers. It sings because it has a song. So.
Wow. Yeah. Maya Angelou. What brilliance. That's pretty daggone awesome. And I will say too, in fairness again to the marketing world, I think also it has to do with fit. I think if you're going to engage, and I know that in my journey on fronts, I had to find someone in that world that understood that I was improvisational, that I was a type 4 on the Enneagram. Because if they did not understand that, it'd be a battle. It'll be me appearing to be stubborn and unwilling, when in reality, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's just, I'm kind of like, my noble goal, as we say in our world, the spirit of EQ, is to pour out what God has poured in. And I'd love to be able to tell you I know exactly what that is every single day, but I don't. I mean, it's in the moments. It's in those interactions, right? Great example. In my church, we're involved in this new pastor search thing. I'm the worst. I don't know all the terminology, but I was asked to serve on this committee to find the new pastor, and they had these questions that, hey, be prepared because the candidate might ask you these kind of questions, and all of them were very deep in nature. This one was a little shocking, but it got me thinking. So the question is, they might ask you, what is your church doing that makes hell shake in their boots? Something to that nature. And at first, I was kind of like, no one's going to ask that kind of question, right?
That sounds like a Carmen song. Remember him?
No, I don't. I remember him, but yeah. but here's my point. But what came to my mind in that moment was one of the candidates came to visit my family and I when my son was in that terrible auto accident the day after. And it was like a 2.5-hour drive. And I just spoke up in that meeting and said, I believe that made hell shake, because that's commitment. That's connection. And then I started going, he did that. He actually did that for me. And he had every opportunity to not do it. Because we all have, we had this meeting. Oh, yeah. Well, we felt it better to give you space. All of the different things, but he did it. And it just reinforced. So I'm saying all of that, Perry, it is these moments. And I'm so appreciative of your approach, that it is an idea of, if I have something to say, I'm going to say it, and here will be the portals in which it happens. And I think maybe, Jeff, if our audience is learning more and more about, look for the gold that is here inside, it's not outside, they're going to move the needle much more than if they don't. Perry, it's always great to see you. Always great that you join us for the show. So happy for that. And for our audience, we appreciate you tuning in. We look forward to the next time we're together. Take care. Hi, everyone. This is Eric Pennington with the Spirit of EQ. I'm not introducing a new episode today. I'm here to tell you some things that might help you. Jeff, you're with me as always. So
Yes.
How do people get in touch with us?
Well, the best way is just send us an email at info@spiritofeq.com.
That's awesome. Jeff, I was also thinking about reviews, and I'm notoriously bad at asking for them, so reviews on all of the platforms wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes.
Do you think that'd be good?
I think that would be great because, one, that will help us learn how to make better ones. And it's always good for us
So
to hear.
we're not the perfect podcast host?
We're close.
Okay, all right, but
not,
still,
not totally
we want your
perfect.
feedback. We want your feedback.
But it also might let us know a new subject. Hey, we need to dig deeper into that.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think.
Cool. We really appreciate that. As always, too, there is social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and we also have a YouTube channel. Those also have mechanisms or options for you to be able to leave a comment, a like, or those kind of things. Just want to make sure that you know how to get in touch with us. Right, Jeff?
Right. We appreciate you all.
Thank you. Once again, we really appreciate you tuning in today. One of the things that Jeff and I want to bring to your attention as well is that when we created this podcast, it was not intended to take the place of a clinician. In other words, if you find yourself in a place where there's something deeper going on or something that you cannot solve on your own, we do recommend that you reach out to a clinician of some sort. This podcast is purely opinion-based, and it is rooted in the desire to help you along your path in whatever way we can. However, it is never going to replace, nor should it ever be looked at as a replacement for clinical help in any way. Thanks again for tuning in.